Existence Brewing.
Okay, Cosmic Kiddos, it's time for another Existence Brewing download.
Motive, of course, is the number one thing that law enforcement attempts to establish when they're looking to pin something on a suspect. They're trying to say, well, the husband did it, or they're trying to say, well...
and I'm not looking at it from a Columbo standpoint. I'm looking at it more from a standpoint of like source degeneration of our society.
No, I know you're not, but I what I'm saying is I think it's understandable that you would, because we're all sort of trained to think in that direction first, because we want to know what the motivation is. So we want to justify why it happened. We need to attach reason to something that is unreasonable. You're going to run into a wall, I think, if you're trying to prescribe a valid reason, no matter how detached you'd feel like most of the world is, because they're not that loopy, or, they would never do something like this. Once the media, depending on which side of the spin cycle it gets onto, well, I've heard everything from one side saying it's so egregious because they're transgender, or we just need to put a blanket ban on firearms.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, okay, there's a reason why this didn't happen 100 years ago, 50 years ago. And yeah, you can say Charles Whitman, but that was a one-off. I mean, we're disconnecting from each other.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
Of each other.
I think that's what the motive comes back to.
That's the answer.
And that's the source code is it's like, why is it that these acts of violence seem to just kind of keep getting stronger and stronger? And it's almost like each one as it ticks away is just getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
We don't love each other. And it's just that simple. And it sounds, at this point, it sounds ludicrous, let alone corny or effeminate or anything like that. It's true. We don't care for one another. We've got better things to do, apparently, than to care for one another. And that's what will get this to stop. And rest assured, there are a handful of people in different institutions, unfortunately, because that's where they're forced to operate, where they have rules and they're governed and they have all these different pitfalls and traps awaiting them, but do care immensely. I've had my one parent in a nursing facility.
That's a job very few people, honestly, are going to want to do, because you're changing bedpans, you're wiping up feces all day. These people are called to be caregivers. They're here as spirits in a world to caregive, and they are incredibly dedicated to it. Now, admittedly, not all of them seem to have an incredibly soft skin. There were some very abrasive personalities that I dealt with in the nursing world when my mother was there, but they had been doing this for 30 years. And I think they had hardened a skin that allowed them to deal with it, because remember, they're still a person and they're seeing a lot of suffering and dying every day. And yet they remain dedicated to the craft of simple physical care.
When I was in the hospital, exact same thing. Yeah. It's like you go from being an able body to now all of a sudden you're peeing in a cup as you lay down in a bed, and somebody's taking care of you. And it was amazing, the personalities that would come through that door, and they didn't know who I was, they didn't care, and they were just there to take care of me.
They're healers. And just like my soapbox, my old one about doctors are healers first and foremost. They're not MDs, they're not DDMDs or MDDDA or whatever, all these things they put after their fucking name on their checks, all this institutionalizing rubbish that they go through. Yes, we have a system where they have to know what they're doing before they cut you open. I appreciate that. But by that time, usually we've squeezed the healer right out of them. And all they are now is a medical practitioner. And that is not what these children who come here to be healers are at their core. They are healers. And it's really unfortunate that they have to work in a world that is so cold and sterile as big pharma and big medicine and big insurance, and navigate literally the most hollow halls that we have in order to do a function that is gravely needed in a world of 8 billion people, which is to heal. May not be full-on physicians, but they definitely know how to get someone's butt clean when the time comes. and make them as comfortable as possible given the circumstances. I mean, I'm just cutting right to the
So
chase.
yeah, how does that do you
anyway,
think tie in with this mental health angle?
Well, because I put the mental health practitioners on the same bar or near the same bar because they care. You don't go into that to get rich. Some of them wind up writing books and gives talks all over the world. That's one in thousands of people that has to graduate from the system to actually work in that capacity. In totality, in all of this, there is a select group of people in the world who is working towards helping the person who might be so beset mentally in our world that this might be the eventual outcome, that there might be a lashing out that would involve hurting other people, even in a mass shooting.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to preclude that, but you might. And I know we're not all here to do the same thing. We're not all here to be healers, but we are in some ways. We're not all here to be professional doctors. We're not all here to be psychologists or psychiatrists. We're not all here to be caregivers in the actual working capacity, but we're all here to care for each other. And the fact that we're doing such a poor job of it with our neighbors and our friends and families, even, and our colleagues, and just total strangers that we see, that's why, in my opinion, this is showing up. So while we all look for a scapegoat in general society or in the government or in some kind of mechanism in the world where we just go in and we just say, well, we just need to, like you said, no more plastic bags for anybody, no more weapons for anybody, no more guns, you can't do this, or that's not it. That's not the answer. The answer is to take care of each other. And if that starts, you'd be amazed at the number of problems that will get solved, not just this one.
We hope this download brewed up something for your existence. To find more, and for full episodes of Existence Brewing, check out the podcast at existencebrewing.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts online.
Existence Brewing.